Hi everyone, and welcome to another episode of CyberRanges Uncovered. Today, we're focusing on cyber resilience and operational technology, specifically in the energy sector. To explore this, I'm joined with two guests at the forefront of OT cybersecurity, Alex from SentryOT and Ed from CyberRanges.
I'm Alex. I'm co-founder and managing director of SentryOT, a platform that is designed to deliver industrial cyber resilience.
I'm Edward, and I'm head of technology services of technology consulting at CyberRanges.
SentryOT was developed with a deep focus on OT environments, where legacy infrastructure and real-time processes create a very different security picture than traditional IT. Let's look into what that complexity really looks like. So Alex, can you kick us off?
So just a bit of a background, because we're coming from the industrial control system space. We personally have been building the network and cybersecurity component of OT infrastructure. So here, technology is not just used for operational processes, but that operational process involves governing a physical process. So we have a bit of a paradigm shift here with different industrial protocols. And the added challenge comes from the fact that these protocols are actually designed to be overlaid on your traditional IP internet protocol. So technology that was designed to be routable and interconnect as many systems as possible. So now we have a paradigm of a system that should be very tightly controlled, whose communication is put on top of a system that is designed to be as widespread as possible.
How do these environments create unique cybersecurity challenges, and how do threat actors take advantage of them?
Now, when you take a general purpose device and you bring it into an industry that was used with devices that had one specific purpose, they were not aware of all the inherent vulnerabilities that they were bringing into their infrastructure. And this is exactly what usually attackers take advantage of. The fact that the networks aren't properly segregated, the fact that protocols were designed to allow quick exchange of data to ensure the safety of the process, but weren't mindful of the fact that not segregating the network allows an attacker to freely navigate into the entire control network. And here I'm going to touch on something that is quite relevant to mention, which is process operators are operators of the process. They are not the engineers of a process. It's the same thing as I can drive a car, but I can't build a car. Now, this is something that is quite often exploited by attackers, which is the fact that the operators are reluctant to changes being brought into their control system, similar to a driver that doesn't want his wheel to be shifted left and right too often. The same way usually process operators are reluctant towards cybersecurity as something that is being brought in and adds further complexity. Therefore, you have a slower life cycle of patch management, upgrades, new releases, and whatnot, which again keeps the system vulnerable for a longer period of time.
Based on my experience in the last couple of years, I have actually observed in real life the convergence that Alex was mentioning between the IT world and the OT world. And from that perspective, I see two kinds of challenges. One challenge is to understand this complexity and to deal with from a technology perspective. And it was explained very well by Alex. So if you look at an OT environment as being an IT environment, this is completely wrong, or at least half wrong. And the other way around, you need to understand both worlds. And there, the second topic that I saw as challenging is related to the human resources, defenders, security engineers trying to design the right technological controls for securing such infrastructures. Usually, most of the people are dealing with those from an IT security perspective, which is totally wrong in my perspective. We should mix teams, we should mix skills, we should mix knowledge. Otherwise, we will not understand the both worlds and also be able to respond accordingly to the threats as explained by Alex.
I think that's a really good thing to add on, especially because our next two topics we want to discuss on were actually the real world complexities behind that. Unlike pure IT incidences, OT breaches can interrupt physical systems, affecting safety, reliability, and public trust even. Alex, I know you've handled some high-stakes incidents in the past. Can you walk us through what some of that might have looked like?
Yeah, I did get a chance to see how a national crisis unfolds when you have a state-sponsored cyber attack. The interesting part is when you have the reality check of a country being brought to a standstill because of a cyber attack. Because of a small group of people with one clear objective: to take down that infrastructure. And when on that infrastructure, the well-being of the state itself depends on it, is when things get interesting. Because here we go for digitalization, right? We want to have digital societies, so we build the data centers where we put all the data in, and we try to bring AI and make sense of all that data to make it as useful and helpful as possible. So basically, if I take out the data center, if I take out that energy source, the country comes to a standstill. So you can picture the level of chaos that is created. Lessons learned from my end is you're never prepared. The first thing is shock. You can't believe that this is happening and you lost everything. So all the engineers are going around in circles, not knowing exactly how to react. And this is without having a clear plan or methodology of incident response at national crisis. And then it's also interesting to look at it from the political spectrum of how to manage panic in society. I mean, most of us use technology without actually understanding how it functions. But then the moment then we lose it, we don't have access to it anymore. The things that can happen in one's mind of, oh my God, all the data is lost. They have access now to stuff that I don't know. It's a social crisis to manage.
When we're talking about cyber resilience in the energy sector, we're talking about the ability to recover quickly without disrupting critical services. What does strong resilience look like in OT environments, and how do we actually prepare for attacks in settings where downtime isn't really an option?
I would start by touching on what Eddie was mentioning, that we don't have that many resources from a human resource point of view. So in order to ensure resilience, and this is also the approach that we have within SentryOT for energy systems, is first of all, make sure that you collect your entire security telemetry. And in order to ensure proper resilience within the energy sector, and keeping in mind the added complexity of operational industrial control systems, is the fact that you need to present all that security information in the context of the operational process. So making sure that you have all the data at hand, make sure you contextualize that data to what you're actually defending, and then actually run some exercises. You need to simulate these, you need to prepare, because when adrenaline is high, when pressure mounts from all these parties to report, you don't get the chance to start thinking about how to correlate the data at that point, or how should I be extracting information from one place or another. And this is actually why we believe that the partnership with Cyber Ranges is quite essential in securing our energy infrastructures, because we need to be talking not about once a year a tabletop exercise. We need to be looking at monthly cyber drills in which we have attacks, simulate attacks that are happening on your infrastructure, not on someone else's infrastructure, not conceptually. Because again, in a crisis situation, you don't get a chance to translate the concept and the theory of it into real life in your infrastructure. You need to be prepared.
Before I launch another question, Ed, do you have anything you'd like to add?
At the strategic level, we are basically living in a world dominated by geopolitics. The security environment, it's reshaping itself, and we can see a lot of things happening today we didn't think they were possible a while ago. So I will give you an example of looking at cyber resilience from a different angle. When, like, for example, you put your entire country infrastructure in the hand of one specific technology provider, and then you have some issues from a geopolitical perspective with the country building that technology, then you're doomed. So you have no chances to protect yourself by using a solution or using some smarter hackers or whatever. And also looking back to the Alex's topics, during our tabletop exercises, we are basically delivering for some of our customers. Sometimes we are training a little bit the mindset or the psychology of the crisis, which is actually one of the most important things. So based on my previous life experiences and being, like, for example, CISOs for a couple of banks, I never saw business continuity plan 100% functional. And lack of functionality most of the time came from the fact that that business continuity plan was never exercised, never repeated to the level that everyone knew exactly the right type of mindset they need to have in the case of a real crisis.
So is that where you would say that domain-specific training is essential? And if so, are you referring more to the psychological aspect or also to the hands-on training, or a combination of both?
A combination of all you mentioned, yeah. Yeah, you cannot miss. If you miss one of it, you are going to miss the entire goal you are going to have, which is to achieve cyber resilience or to secure your infrastructure, basically.
It's one thing to train one person, one team, but in order to assure that an entire network, an entire system behind a business is up to par to provide that cyber resilience, I would say it's essential to scale that. How can we address that?
First of all, practice makes perfect, right? By constantly repeating and redoing something, you find small bits where you can optimize, where you can make it better, where you can make it more efficient. It gets embedded into your memory and you have reflexes on how to react and how to be efficient. Also wanted to add that there's a bit of a difference between how we build the infrastructure for industrial control systems and energy sector or any other operational technology sector, and how cybersecurity exists. Because these infrastructures are one-offs. Basically, you do the engineering, you think of all the tiny details, you build that infrastructure, you commission it, and it's there to operate for 20, 25 years. Whereas cybersecurity is something more organic, something that constantly evolves, something that you need to pay attention and retune and refine. And you're never going to get it right because the threat is ever changing and ever upgrading. Training in the cyberspace is more about making you aware of how to more efficiently handle these large volumes of data in order to react more efficiently. And time is of the essence when we're talking about national energy infrastructure, governmental data centers, anything that has to do with the normal day-to-day functioning of our societies. And I'll double on what Ed was saying with supply chain. You can see more and more how technology is used for geopolitical interests. And if my entire supply chain is, from a technical point of view, is dependent on one country or one region, in itself is a vulnerability that I'm embedding into the digital fabric of my society.
This is one of the reasons we are partnering up with SentryOT, because they have this background of both worlds, OT and IT, and they are creating security for the OT world, and we need to deliver realistic training. So we cannot deliver realistic training without having partners coming from real world. Theoretical classes are not enough anymore. You need to have more and more applied hands-on training classes, and this is what we are building together, basically.
The attack surface is only growing. Considering everything that's happening, considering the speed at which changes in the industry take place, what would you say are the biggest threats on the horizon, and let's call them trends if I dare, that you're expecting to see in protecting and defending and creating that cyber resilience in the OT sector?
I think we're at a very important milestone in cybersecurity for industrial control systems. What I see as one of the biggest threats in OT cyber is lack of skilled personnel, which is a huge challenge right now because it requires two different engineering specialities in one individual. One that knows computer science in the sense of IT, and also that knows industrial automation in the sense of OT. It is about training and also about making sure that information is useful in a crisis situation. Making sure that things are tailored to what I'm trying to actually monitor.
On a strategic level, as I mentioned before, I think the biggest threat for the future is coming from geopolitics, not from the technology world. And you can look around and take a closer look at the Ukraine conflict, in the Ukraine war. The Russians, they have attacked the Ukrainian civilian infrastructure, and they succeeded. They stopped the electricity. They affected civilians, the general population. Their goal probably was to lower the morale of the population and their resilience in front of this war. The strategic dependency of the supply chain in this industry, I think this is the biggest threat in the future. Everybody in this field heard about Stuxnet, which it's still a thing to be dissected, maybe studied, because it's one of the most complex cyber attacks that ever happened in the world. And the target was an operational technology, actually an industrial system. with no connectivity from the internet. And I'm saying that because I heard from many people we are okay, we are safe because we are not connected to the internet, which is totally false. And starting from that moment, anything it's basically pictured out as possible in this world. We just need to look around and understand what is happening and then adapt ourselves to it from all perspectives. I'm not speaking only about the cybersecurity professionals. I'm speaking about everybody, politicians, investors in the energy sector, for example. If we are referring to this sector specifically, but OT, it's something you can find in many other sectors, so on and so forth. So
from my point of view, the job of cybersecurity engineer is most related to a therapist or a priest, in the sense that to us you come with your sins and you have to tell the whole truth, because otherwise we can't help you. You need to tell me where you bought that technology from. You need to tell me what quick wins you did in the code when you developed that product. And I also want to double on the awareness part. We managed to have some very relevant changes in our society because of awareness, but also all the parties involved, be it management, be it investment funds, regulatory, demanding that you pay attention to diversity in your businesses, that you should have equal rights regardless. You can see the impact it had on society. If we would have the same approach on cybersecurity right now, given the fast pace that we're digitalizing, I'm quite optimistic that it's a game we can win.
And that's a wrap on this episode of Cyber Ranges Uncovered. Big thank you to Alex from SentryOT and Ed from Cyber Ranges for sharing invaluable insights and stories. Stay tuned for more episodes of Cyber Ranges Uncovered, and be sure to follow us on LinkedIn to not miss a beat. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.